go also fast forward to the 1980 Olympics. Another great boycott was called in the advent of the Soviet Union invading Afghanistan. And the 1980 Olympics were held in Moscow. And President Jimmy Carter held back the U.S. Olympic team, and he was joined by many, many, many countries on all the continents to boycott the Olympics in Moscow in 1980. President Carter followed that with an embargo on wheat to the Soviet Union, and that hurt the farmers in the United States, and probably cost him votes in the 1980 election. We're looking at great boycotts of all time, and now another one is when the heavyweight champion of the world, Muhammad Ali, as a conscientious objector, basically boycotted or resisted being drafted to go to Vietnam, and he was stripped of his belts and arguably probably 3 years of his prime fighting life until the Supreme Court rendered a unanimous decision in Muhammad Ali's favor, and eventually he got his licenses back to fight. During that time, he was interviewed and also working behind the scenes by Howard Cosell, one of the few journalists that would interview him, one of the few early on that would even call him Muhammad Ali instead of his birth name given to him, Cassius Clay. And an interesting thing, when the Supreme Court ruling came back, it was Howard Cosell, who is of the Jewish faith, that called Muhammad Ali to give him the news. Now, very interesting, with the 2020 Olympics coming up in Tokyo, and even the 2018 Winter Olympics coming up in Seoul, South Korea, and we know that the president of South Korea has offered an invitation to North Korea to join in the Winter Olympic Games. I believe that North Korea has turned that down at this point. And so we look ahead to the 2020 Summer Olympics to be held in Tokyo, Japan, and it's a wonder how they're going to secure it against terrorist attacks. It's a wonder what sort of boycott, what sort of demonstration is in store there. And really, what we're looking at here is what about the naming of a stadium after Mercedes-Benz? And this is something that many of the Jewish people coming out of the World War II conflict and the things suffered by the Jews in Germany and in Europe in general, by not just the Nazis, but also the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin. And so it's a wonder why the boycott isn't against the naming of a stadium of a particular brand. And also we're in the midst of the controversies over the particular memorials to the Confederacy, and it's called eracism to get rid of monuments linked to the Confederacy, and the whole question of what's the difference between George Washington and Robert E. Lee. There's not a lot of difference there, really. There's not a lot of difference there. They were fighting for Virginia. George Washington was fighting for Virginia. the colony of Virginia before the formation of the United States of America. George Washington was fighting for Virginia, and Robert E. Lee was fighting for Virginia. Without Virginia, there's no way, really, arguably, that the American Revolution would have been won without Virginia, and without Virginia, arguably, it remains to be seen, but without Virginia, the South could not have really lasted as long as it did in the Civil War. But one of the key things that Abraham Lincoln said after the Civil War concluded, with malice toward none and charity toward all. This is Derek Chamblee, broadcasting from Chamblee, Atlanta, the next great American city, Battleground Zero, the epicenter of the 2017 civil defense of the United States of America, CYRADYO, CyberCitizen Network. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, this is Derek Chamblee, broadcasting from Chamblee, Atlanta, the next great American city, Battleground Zero, the epicenter of the 2017 civil defense of the United States of America. Beautiful day so far in Chamblee, Atlanta. It's winding up on 2:30 in the afternoon. It's Saturday, August 20th. 2017, following Trump path, of course, and this one entitled Trump Path, Great Boycott, Hitler, Mercedes-Benz, NAACP, Star-Spangled Banner, Atlanta, Falcons, oh my, the NFL. And you know, once again,